become a holder of the key to heaven. Matthew chapter 16, verse 13 through 20 states, "When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, 'Who do people say the Son of Man is?' They replied, 'Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you?' he asked. 'Who do you say I am?' Simon Peter answered, 'You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God.' Jesus replied, 'Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone he was the Messiah. On Matthew chapter 7, verse 21, it states, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Therefore, saying 'Lord, Lord' has no significance. Only knowing God's will and carrying out that will is important." We hope this time today can be one where we discover God's will through the scripture. When Jesus was carrying out his preaching, the Pharisees of the law at the time called him Beelzebub, prince of demons, but the people of Caesarea Philippi region thought of him as a great prophet. However, when Jesus does not hear the answer he desires, he asks again of his disciples. And at the time, Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven." And Jesus blessed Peter. Matthew chapter 16, verse 18 states, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." At the time, his name was Simon, but Jesus changed it to Peter. It means one who cannot be toppled, a solid foundational stone. Peter received the blessing that on top of that foundational stone was built God's church, and Hades will not overcome it. Matthew chapter 16, verse 19 states, "I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Jesus said he would give the keys of the kingdom of heaven to Peter, that whatever he bound on earth would be bound in heaven, and whatever he let loose on earth would be loosed in heaven. Today, most people think from this verse that Peter received the keys to heaven. However, Jesus said, "I will give you," which is future tense, not "I gave you," which would be past tense. Matthew chapter 16, verse 21 through 23 states, "From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life." Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Peter, who had been promised the keys to heaven, did not understand the path Jesus was on, and Jesus rebuked him. "Get behind me, Satan." Also, Peter denied Jesus 3 times when he went to bear the cross. How could such a man have received the keys to heaven? We hope you can understand. Those words were using Peter as a metaphor to signify that Jesus would give the keys of the kingdom of heaven to those in the future who would have a faith-like foundational pillars. Those who possess the keys to heaven must open the doors to heaven and must reveal the secrets of heaven. The Bible hid away the secrets of heaven under the lock and key of metaphor and parables. Matthew chapter 13, verse 34 states, "Jesus spoke all these things to the crowd in parables. He did not say anything to them without using a parable." Like so, Jesus spoke in parables and metaphors rather than the reality. Jesus spoke figuratively, so his disciples asked him why he spoke to the people in parables. Matthew chapter 13, verse 10 through 11 states, "The disciples came to him and asked, 'Why do you speak to the people in parables?' He replied, 'Because the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them.'" And Jesus explained that the reality of the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven have been permitted only to his disciples. and that he spoke in parables to those who were not permitted such secrets. Therefore, those who understand these parables are those who have been permitted heaven. John chapter 16 verse 25 states, "Though I have been speaking figuratively, a time is coming when I will no longer use this kind of language, but will tell you plainly about my Father." Jesus said when it is the right time, he will not speak figuratively anymore, but will speak plainly. Then who possesses the keys to the kingdom of heaven? Revelations chapter 3 verse 7 states, "To the angel of the church in Philadelphia, write, these are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open." Revelations chapter 22 verse 16 states, "I, Jesus, have sent my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright morning star." Jesus said himself that he is the root and offspring of David. Thus, the keys to the house of David are the keys to the house of Christ, which are the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Isaiah chapter 22 verse 22 states, "I will place on his shoulder the key to the house of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open." This verse said that the key to the house of David, the key to the house of Jesus, the key to heaven have been placed on his shoulders. To place the key on his shoulder means to place authority upon him. Upon the shoulders of a soldier is his rank, and the higher his rank, the higher his clearance is to know information. So, to say, what he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. If someone with the keys of heaven lets you know the secret of heaven, no one can gainsay that. And if he chooses not to reveal it, then no one can know. It indicates he has this kind of awe-inspiring authority. Revelations chapter 3 verse 7 states, "To the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens no one can shut, and what he shuts no one can open." The one who appeared to the church of Philadelphia is the one like the Son of Man. Jesus called himself the Son of Man. Therefore, the one like the Son of Man cannot be Jesus. Instead, it is someone who is like him, who resembles him. Physically, that someone cannot be Jesus, but spiritually, it is someone who received Jesus' spirit. Therefore, they are like the Son of Man. We commonly think that death is the power held by Satan, but salvation and death are all a power held by God. Isaiah chapter 45 verse 7 states, "I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity and create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things." If God only gave salvation and never judged, who would fear him? Therefore, God not only holds the keys to heaven, he holds the power over death. Revelations chapter 1 verse 13 through 18 states, "And among the lampstands was someone like a son of man, dressed in a robe reaching down to his feet and with a golden sash around his chest. The hair on his head was white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like blazing fire. His feet were like bronze, glowing in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing waters. In his right hand he held 7 stars, and coming out of his mouth was a sharp double-edged sword. His face was like the sun shining in all its brilliance. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead. Then he placed his right hand on me and said, 'Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. I am the living one. I was dead, and now look, I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys of death and Hades.' Accordingly, as the one who is like the Son of Man holds the key to death and purgatory, it means the one who holds the key to heaven must also hold the key to death and purgatory, namely the key to judgment. John chapter 4 verse 36 through 37 states, "Even now the one who reaps draws a wage and harvests a crop for eternal life, so that the sower and the reaper may be glad together. Thus the saying, one sows and another reaps is true." If we look at Matthew chapter 13 verse 37, Jesus, who is the Son of Man, sows the good seed. Jesus is the one who spreads and sowed the good seed. So, if we look at the verse that says the sower and the reaper are glad together, it means that since Jesus is the sower, there must also be another who is the reaper. Then who is the reaper? Revelations chapter 14, verse 14 through 15 states, "I looked, and there before me was a white cloud, and seated on the cloud was one like a son of man, with a crown of gold on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. Then another angel came out of the temple and called in a loud voice to him who was sitting on the cloud, 'Take your sickle and reap, because the time to reap has come, for the harvest of the earth is ripe.' The one who is like the Son of Man means one who is like Jesus Christ. The one who is like the Son of Man, holding a sharp sickle, reaps the harvest, which means the one like the Son of Man is the reaper, the one who reaps and holds the keys of David, the keys of the kingdom of heaven. The keys of the kingdom of heaven was thought to have been given to Peter, but Peter is not the one who received it. We hope you realize the one like the Son of Man received it, and that you can realize the reality of the secret of heaven, not the metaphor. It is hoped that every one of you here today can also become like the one like the Son of Man, receive the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and be on this blessed path.